All of us have biases or ideas about things we haven't personally experienced, places we haven't been. I mean, before I ever spent any time down in the South, if all you knew about the South was what you saw on TV and in the movies, then you would know people in the South are a bunch of fat slobs that drive around in pickup trucks that go around shooting people with shotguns for no reason whatsoever. But if you spend any time in the South, then you know that the people in the South are very charming, very friendly, very helpful. It's a fantastic people. A lot of fantastic places to live down there. I had the same experience with the Midwest. Before I spent any time with the Midwest, I really didn't know what to think. Kind of had an image of checkered, red and white checkered tablecloths on top of a picnic basket, a wicker picnic basket filled with fried chicken and buttermilk under a big old oak tree in the middle, near some wall on a farm. And the people, but that's kind of the way a lot of it still is, really. I actually covered some of this territory in Redwood to Deadwood. A 53-year-old dude hitchhikes across America again. Little book I wrote. I spent a lot of time in the Midwest, met a lot of people in the Midwest. So my preconception, my bias of the Midwest was a good one. It still is. But when I started reading and writing and talking and doing videos and podcasts about black mob violence wildly out of proportion all over the country, and how reporters and public officials are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it, I got to confess, the first few times I heard stuff coming out of Kansas City, I didn't know what to think about it. Thought there must be a mistake. Maybe it's a one-off. Maybe your white kids were doing it. Well, none of that was true. Kansas City is a center of black criminality and black mob violence, and it has been, especially centered around a place called Country Club Plaza. It's an entertainment district. It's a nice place. That's what makes it so weird, that it's built really close to a public housing project. Lots of the fellas live there, and every once in a while, large groups of the fellas and their lovely ladies go into the plaza and create enormous amounts of chaos, mayhem, and violence. The people who want to go out to dinner to have a little glass of white wine and a piece of fish, they don't normally like being exposed to that kind of stuff. But it's been happening for a long time. So why don't we take a look at the latest example of what's happening out there? And this is not just an example of the violence and the mayhem that black people are creating at the plaza. It's also an example of how these reporters, they just walk into a situation and act as if this has never happened there before. Maybe, there's a good chance this reporter didn't know it happened there before. Maybe he's just one of these nomads that come in and out of these medium-sized markets on the way to bigger and better things. I don't know. But we've got clueless reporters in this story you're going to hear. We've got clueless witnesses, clueless victims. Nobody really knows how prevalent this is. Nobody knows how much reporters and public officials are really, really eager to ignore, minimize, deny, condone, excuse, even lie about it. So why don't we do this? Why don't we hear the latest story out of Kansas City? Then why don't we hear a few stories that I've documented in both of my books, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry and White Girl Bleed a Lot. Why don't we just go through a couple of those stories just as a reminder to the reporters and to the people who live near the plaza what they've gotten themselves into when they live there and what they get themselves into when they ignore what happens there.
Yeah, well, what started all of this remains a mystery, but witnesses we talked to say that there was a lot of screaming, yelling, and running all over the place. Emergency vehicles swarming the plaza Saturday night after what witnesses called a chaotic scene.
There were a lot of teenage kids just everywhere.
One witness, who only wanted to be identified as CJ, says she was sitting at a red light near 47th and Main when a group of delinquents started kicking and jumping on her car.
One of the kids flipped me off, gave me the middle finger, They started making gang signs with their hands.
She was able to get away and found a KCPD officer who she says told her there was mayhem on the plaza.
I said, "Oh, so you know about it?" And she said, "Yeah, there are kids just beating up people. There will probably be kids going to jail tonight."
Fox 4 confirmed that at least 3 people were assaulted on or near the plaza Saturday night, including a Cheesecake Factory employee on his way home from work.
We just thought, oh my gosh, when are the bullets going to start flying? And I told my kids, I said, if something starts going off, hit the ground.
Deborah Bryan was headed to dinner with her family. They own a condo at Parkway Towers just blocks from where the scene was unfolding.
It was just like this 40 kids, all looked preteen, teen, and they were screaming and yelling at the police officers.
Some of those officers had what appeared to be cans of pepper spray, but a KCPD spokesperson says there are no reports that the spray was ever used.
We didn't see anybody get taken down. We didn't see anybody being roughed up, but it was just like a pack of wild kids.
Deborah says the whole scene was enough for her family to question whether they should keep their condo in the area or sell it.
We don't want any part of this. We're not judging the kids, but it was just not appropriate.
Well, one manager, a restaurant manager I talked to, says that he has never been as scared to be at work than he was on Saturday night. Now, the city does have a curfew in place for its 5 entertainment district, which includes the plaza, but that's only effective during the summer months. Live in Kansas City, Zach Summers, Fox 4 News.
Okay. It was what it was. A couple of kids blowing off some steam in the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City. Wow, not much to it. Lady said, wow, I didn't really sign up for this when I moved into the condo. I didn't know anything at all about this, Colin. Colin, I've had my head in the sand. I don't watch local news. I don't really try to read between the line on local news because the reporters didn't say that there's large-scale black mob violence at that plaza. The reporters didn't tell us that people going to the plaza, from the plaza, are victims of black-on-white crime, violence, robbery, and murder. I just took their word for it, Colin. I put the entire safety of my family in the hands of a reporter who knows less about Kansas City than your average tourist at the airport. I loved it when that one lady said, I'm not judging them. I'm not judging them. What the hell is the matter with you? Why do you feel like the need to say that? Of course we're judging them. This is repeated patterns, predictable, like clockwork, nasty business at the plaza, happening for a long time. And yes, we should damn well judge them. Especially since Kansas City is one of those places, if somebody gets a sign and scribbles Black Lives Matter on it and sticks it out a window at 1 a.m., there's going to be 20 TV cameras there asking for great details about why they are victims of white racism in Kansas City. And when they tell these little fairy tales of white racism in Kansas City, nobody checks. And everybody just says, oh yeah, could you tell us some more? And nobody says, well, what about this level of black criminality in Kansas City? What about that? What about all those kids down at the plaza that are terrorizing white people at the plaza? What's up with that? You don't think there's a connection between those two things? I mean, let's watch this story. This is one of the earlier stories from 2010 on what happened out there. This is part of White Girl Bleed a Lot. But let's watch this, and this will kind of give us an early indication of what happened then. And this has just kept happening monthly since then.
Tonight, there is trouble on Kansas City's front door, the Country Club Plaza. For 2 Saturdays in a row, large groups of young teens have been roaming the streets causing trouble. And now it's reached critical mass. Michael Mahoney has the latest on the story. Michael?
Laura, for some teenagers, young teenagers, the plaza has now become the in-place to be on Saturday nights. These tweeners, many of them too young to drive, still find a way down to the plaza, and they're arriving down here in huge numbers, in some cases intimidating and frightening some plaza customers, certainly worrying the merchants. Those merchants are worried because of what you're about to see. Watch this. This is silent cell phone video of a mean little fight between some teenage girls on the plaza Saturday night. Fights like this broke out all over the place as hundreds of young teens gathered on the plaza.
They were walking around the plaza. There had to have been hundreds of them.
Corey Johnson was working as a waiter Saturday night. He says between the heavy police presence trying to control the crowd and the thumping of the police helicopter blades overhead overseeing the roving bands of kids,
They're being pretty disruptive. I heard, as far as the yelling goes, that's where the disruptiveness was coming from.
Was it uncomfortable down here on Saturday night?
It was a little tense, I would say so.
And that's really how I would characterize what happened. Young people behaving badly.
According to the Saturday night police report, by 10, the situation was at a flashpoint. Citizens were complaining about being shoved and pushed and intimidated by the large group of kids roaming the streets. A couple leaving the Cheesecake Factory. The boy in a tux, the girl in a prom dress, ran into part of the group. She was pushed into the fountain. They got away. Through much of today, there were a series of meetings underway to address the problem. The plaza's owners, Highwood Property, says this is a serious matter and they are working with the city and the police to get it under control.
We had a plan in place for about 200 to 300 people. We had 750 to 1,000. So we're going to be anticipating that this weekend.
So look for a heavy police presence on the Country Club Plaza when it comes to this Saturday night, because hundreds of young teens seem to be making their way down here and causing some problems, and the police and the city and the plaza just won't have it. We're live on the plaza. Back to you.
Michael, thank you. And of course, a lot of reaction on our website about this recent trouble on the plaza. One person writes, if we can't even go out with our families and feel safe at the plaza, how in the world would we have ever felt safe out there with this type of behavior going on? And another whose daughter was there says clearly, cowards run in packs. There is no other way to explain 8 to 10 girls jumping on 3. And finally, here's a simple solution. No more unsupervised teenagers on the plaza. End of problem.
A city councilman says tonight he's getting complaints that police used too much force on the plaza last weekend. The complaints say police pepper sprayed young blacks on the plaza who were not causing the trouble. That charge is not sitting well with the police chief tonight. KMBC 9's Michael Mahoney has the latest from the plaza. Michael?
Larry, that charge is coming from City Councilman John Sharp, and the rebuttal is coming from Police Chief Jim Corwin. He says they have received no complaints about this. Take a look. This is amateur video from the cell phone of last Saturday night on the plaza. The video clearly showing some in a teenage crowd estimated to be in the hundreds who were out of control. Police used pepper spray to restore the order, and City Councilman John Sharp says he's received complaints about the use of too much force.
There are reports, and I don't know why people would make these up, that some of the pepper spray use was excessive.
I do that because normally people are not afraid to call my office and give me complaints.
And Corwin says his office has received no complaints. Channel 9, however, has obtained copies of 2 complaints sent to Sharp's office. One says they were pepper spraying indiscriminately. It continues, my dinner group felt that things got worse after the police arrived. We felt they only escalated the problem. And another complaint says, my nephew was walking his girlfriend home when a KC policeman approached, yelled, move along, then pepper sprayed him, turned and left in his patrol car, leaving my nephew on the ground covered in pepper spray.
Very proud of my officers. They did a wonderful job. Actually, they were ahead of the curve.
Meaning the police were already in place on the plaza because there had been reports of trouble with a much smaller crowd of teens a week earlier. And on one spot on this video, it is clear that a uniformed officer is passed by a group of teens, some of them the same people involved in the fighting shown earlier in this report, and there's no pepper spray here. Still, Sharp wonders if another part of town would get the same treatment.
I'd certainly like to be able to see in my neighborhood, where we've been plagued by home burglaries, the same kind of police response we saw down on the plaza.
Now, Sharp says he will turn his complaint information over to the chief's office. The chief says their policy on trouble like this, if it reoccurs, is going to be that the officers will be firm, fair, and compassionate. He also says they are ready for trouble if it does return here to the plaza or anywhere else around the city next weekend. We're live on the plaza. Back to you.
Michael Mahoney, thank you very much.
Same story. A couple of years later, teens cause disturbance on Country Club Plaza. Surprise!
Unaccompanied teens swarming the plaza, often causing trouble.
Now, that was the case last night. Fights broke out. Some were even arrested. Lisa Benson is live on the plaza right now with a look at how the city's dealing with this latest problem. Lisa?
Well, they have great places to eat and even better places to shop, which is why people want to come on the plaza. What police encountered last night was not a curfew issue. It was just simply bad behavior, which makes this even more frustrating for both patrons and the police chief. 150 unruly teens, some blocking traffic, 3 street fights, and 3 citations. That's what Kansas City police tallied last night on the plaza.
I've never really felt threatened down here.
A lot of young African-American kids, for the most part. I mean, that's what it is. And they're just down here trying to have a good time. Sometimes they get carried away.
This morning, Police Chief Daryl Forte noted the disturbances on Twitter. He told followers to expect more citations to be issued in the near future and that citations are based on behavior, not race.
We know that our young people aren't welcome in certain places in this city, and it's important that you act accordingly wherever you are.
In the past, Council member Jermaine Reed has suspected racism in the enforcement of the city's entertainment district curfew. But last night's disturbance was not a curfew violation. The 9 o'clock entertainment district curfew runs from May until September. These teens massed on the plaza last night before the 11 o'clock citywide curfew.
Parents should make sure that they're stepping up to the plate and being parents and talking to your young people about their behavior wherever they are in this city.
Plaza patrons seem to agree. Chris B. tweeted Chief Forte saying, "Hopefully things will be done. Was there last night for a date night and it was awful," while others are more focused on the parents.
I don't think that it's a very good idea for parents to just drop their kids and go. The more kids get bored, the more bad things are going to happen.
Now, Chief Forte will meet with his command staff this week to outline his plan to improve behavior on the plaza. And, of course, we will let you know what he decides.
That's my favorite construction. And there we just heard a guy named Jermaine Reed. My favorite construction is the reason the black people are causing enormous amounts of violence, mayhem, chaos, and worse at the plaza is because the business people there do not make them feel welcome. Did you hear that? It's not the first time we've heard that. First time I heard it was in St. Louis at the Loop in St. Louis, which is kind of almost the same thing as the plaza. It's an entertainment district, lots of nice restaurants, lots of nice shops. People go there Friday, Saturday night to have a good time. They go there in the daytime to shop. Large groups of black people rampaging through there. So the local TV station got a hold of a DJ, a black DJ, and they walked the streets of St. Louis and the Loop. They say, "What's up with all this stuff going on there?" He goes, "Well, the businesses aren't making the black people feel welcome there." I mean, what are they supposed to do? Put up a flag of Wakanda? What are they supposed to do? What special treatment should businesses give to black people to make them feel welcome in order to make the black people not commit violence, mayhem, and chaos in and around their businesses? You know, I just wish we're kind of used to the fact that reporters hardly ever ask one question. So I guess it's not realistic to think they could ask 2. But it would be nice if when they hear somebody say we don't feel welcome there, and that's why that's happening, it'd be nice just to ask one more question to say, well, what should they do? What should they do? "20% off flags from the country of Wakanda. Meet the diplomat, meet the ambassador from Wakanda to the United Nations or America this week." I mean, how patronizing can we get in order to make black people feel welcome? Should we celebrate the fact that black people enjoy certain ethnic foods in this country? Oh yeah, if they do that, if you want to make people feel welcome that way, you'll get fired. 2 black guys got fired from their jobs at a college in New York City. They were doing a menu for Black History Month. They put fried chicken on there. A couple kids said, "Hey, that's an insult to black people. We don't eat fried chicken." Guys, the black people got fired for doing that. How patronizing do you want them to be? I mean, the goalpost is always moving, right? It's like, you got to make us feel welcome. "Oh, hello, black people. May I welcome you?" Hey, that's patronizing. You're going to be fired for that. Boy, we did a story in Sacramento about a month ago about a yoga studio. The lady's genius of an idea was, we're going to have a yoga studio, but we're going to have hip-hop music in our yoga studio. Yay! It was a black guy married to a white chick. I think it was her. I think the yoga was her gig. Anyway, some of the people at Black Lives Matter in Sacramento, headed up by a woman whose mom was Greek and who didn't even know her dad, she got all pissed off, was out there with people demonstrating in front of this yoga studio for weeks and weeks and weeks. Even after they dropped the hip hop, they said, well, this is a cultural appropriation. We don't want you playing yoga. We don't want you playing hip hop in your yoga studio. Yes, we are the self-appointed guardians of everything that is black in this country, and you, white person, especially you crazy white liberal person with a yoga studio, we don't want you playing hip-hop music. Because hip-hop music is a black thing, even though white kids are the ones buying it. And so this lady, she was down with the cause. The lady that owned the studio, she was down with the cause. She took her hip-hop down right away. She apologized right away. But the demonstrators didn't go away. Even the Black Lives Matter head of it, her mom's from Greece. She just stayed out there, trying to drive away the customers. And finally, the owner of the yoga studio goes, man, what can we do? We keep, nothing we can do is right. Nothing. Everything we do, they don't like it. There's something wrong with everything we do. Oh, we're sorry we played your hip-hop music. First of all, it's not her music to begin with. That's a little thing we have in this country. It's called copyright laws for music. If Meek Mill makes a song saying, I'm down with murder, my friends are down with murder, and if you're not down with murder, you're a pussy. If you play that, you owe Meek Mill some money. That song belongs to Meek Mill. It doesn't belong to some random black person who comes and picks it up and says, oh yeah, this is my song now. Yeah, because every song that talks about killing people is my song. Oh, of course, that's a black thing, isn't it? All right, let's get back to Kansas City because we haven't even begun with Kansas City yet. A couple years ago, maybe some of these reporters should have listened to this radio interview. I was on the radio in Kansas City, KCMO. That's like one of these big blow torches out there in the Midwest. And we talked a little bit about black mob violence in Kansas City and how so many people, including members, public officials, and reporters, are in denial about it. Let's play some of that interview.
I'm joined now by Colin Flaherty. The book is called White Girl Bleed a Lot. And it talks a lot about some of this racial crime that's going on, and he does chronicle stuff that's going on right here in Kansas City. Of course, the problem at the plaza, a lot of people are saying it has to do with race, and what do we do with it? Where does it go? And is it just here? No, it's nationwide, according to Colin Flaherty. Colin, how are you this morning?
Honored to be in Kansas City.
Hey, we appreciate it. So let's start with the title, White Girl Bleed a Lot. From the title, I know there are people going, oh, this guy's racist. Tell us about it.
Well, there's nothing racist. There's no rancor in the book either. The title's from an incident in Milwaukee, July 4th. 50 to 100 black people ran into a convenience store, looted it, all on video. They took their stuff 2 blocks away where they met up with 10 white kids where they beat them up pretty good. At one point, a black woman is standing over a white woman, and she points to all her friends, and she points down at the white woman, and she says, white girl bleed a lot. And that's where the title comes from.
And you chronicle these throughout the book of black mobs going in and doing this, and there's video, and I think most of us have seen some of this now, either on the news or on the internet, but just a tiny sliver of what you found. Why do you think these kind of incidents don't get very much media play nationwide?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know why, but I just do document that it happens. Kansas City is a perfect example. When I go around the country talking about this, and I write about Kansas City in my book, I always ask people, I say, does anybody here know that Kansas City is a hotbed of racial violence? and lawlessness. And they go, no, I didn't know that. And I talk about the plaza. I mean, it was just a couple weeks ago was really the first time that anybody belled the cat in Kansas City, where a local TV report, a local councilman said, hey, everybody gets tickets for loitering and breaking the law at the plaza. Everybody last year was black. And so I called him, and he said, this time we have a conversation up on this. So I called him, Councilman Reed. I said, I'm ready for that conversation. He said, I'm not talking to you.
Well, you know why he brought that up? When we covered this, when it happened on the show, he brought it up to try to imply that the police were racially enforcing the curfew on the plaza during the summer months. We have it in our 5 entertainment districts to try to take care of the problem that was on the plaza. As you know, when Mayor Sly James was there last year, he had to dive into the bushes at the Cheesecake Factory because gunshots were going off. And it was part of this problem with what they like to say euphemistically around here, the youth on the plaza. And Sly James, who was a black mayor, had to come down from his office and say, wait a second. Just because the people getting these tickets on the curfew are black doesn't mean the police are racist. And because he was a black mayor, he was able to say that and people didn't go after him. But that's part of the problem. When you say that, then they get on you.
Well, the evidence is over the video evidence. That's what I look at. I look at the videos. I call people on the scene, call the victims. And Kansas City, they're called, and you know where you get the real story, not just talk radio. You also get great stories from people who write comments in the paper saying, I was there. Here's what happened. Dozens of them. Kansas City has a nasty little problem, but guess what? It's the same thing is happening all over the country. Not just places like Kansas City, but small places. Peoria, Illinois, Springfield, Missouri. How about Virginia Beach, Virginia, 2 weekends ago? All over. I documented more than 500 examples in more than 100 cities all over the country.
Colin Flaherty with me, White Girl Bleed a Lot. Let's do one more on Kansas City, because you chronicle one, June 2011, Roger McBride and his son, grown son, working at home, and about 40 black kids were coming up the street, and the mob kicked in his neighbor's front door. What was going on there?
Yeah, so a mob of black people is attacking his neighbor's house. McBride sticks his head out the window. He goes, get out of there, you kids. Well, they all decided they're going to attack him. McBride gets a gun. They're throwing rocks. They're trying to break down his door. McBride presents himself with a rifle. Everybody ran away. And they basically ran away to another neighborhood where they did bad stuff there as well. So McBride is one of the heroes of the book. There are several examples of people who do defend themselves against black mob violence, and that's all over the book as well.
Did you see white mob violence? Because I'm sure that there are people saying, wait, you're just trying to stir up racial tension, and you're trying to say that all these black kids, when they get together, they're all violent, and there's a lot of white kids who are in gangs, and there's a lot of white kids who are bad too. Why don't you chronicle that?
You know, one thing I don't do in the book, I don't do generalizations, stereotypes. Nor do I apologize. But that question, conversion to that question always comes up, and I always say, if there is white mob violence that is not being chronicled or people are not reporting it, please let me know. You know, you and I will write that book, and we'll become gajillionaires. So if anybody has a link, if anybody has a video, please send it to me.
So like you say, you're not trying to say all black kids are like this or all black people are like this. What you're saying is, this is what is actually happening. These are facts, and it's not being reported this way. And that's the point, and we need to go from there.
Yeah, and here's the bigger picture. We live in a very race-conscious country. Every day, you and I pick up a paper and read about black caucuses, black churches, black colleges, black newspapers, black radio stations, and many of the stories about those institutions are written by members of the National Association of Black Journalists. Yet we have, on dozens of occasions in downtown Kansas City, at the plaza, dozens of occasions, we have large groups of black people doing all sorts of bad things, and these same reporters then turn around and look at you and claim they are colorblind. There's something going on. That's what the book is about. The book says something's going on, and why don't we figure out what it is?
Colin Flaherty, White Girl Bleed a Lot is the name of the book here. Have you noticed, I've had a lot of listeners email me, and I've seen it in some of their reporting, that they're leaving out the race of the suspect when they report the case. And they didn't used to do that, and you're wondering, at least I'm wondering, why. And I think it's what you're getting to there, that for some reason it's become taboo to report the facts on the case if it puts one race in a bad light.
You know, I actually wrote a chapter about how Melissa Harris Perry on MSNBC talked about that on her TV show. She said that she was having a discussion with a Harvard professor, and she said, you know, black reporters won't report some black crime if it makes black people look bad. Now, when she said that, I said, did she really just say that? And so that's, you know, I all these videos that I have, I link to, including that. It's so there's some stuff out there that people are afraid to talk about. People like Councilman Reed are saying, let's have a conversation about this. But I don't find a lot of people open to this conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't want to really have the conversation, because if the conversation shows that the majority of the problem with the intimidation and the kind of I don't know the word really, because if you see what's going
violence, lawlessness.
Well, but some of the stuff that's going on in the plaza is not necessarily violence. It's a group of teens who are like walking in front of traffic, trying to intimidate traffic, maybe yelling at people, maybe trying to intimidate them, but not really always getting to the point of physicality. But when you find out that the vast majority of that is happening from black youths, and if you say that, now all of a sudden you're a racist. And that's the level that doesn't make any sense when you're saying, wait a second, these are the facts. This doesn't mean all black kids are bad. Just like if a white kid in my neighborhood threw a rock through my window, that doesn't mean all white kids are bad. But it's the fact of the case.
Now, here's the thing. You and we're understanding on the corner watching a car crash, and I'm wondering, I'm just a guy saying that's a car crash, and I'm wondering why everybody around me is saying there's no car crash there.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and apologize for noticing there's a car crash, and I'm not going to let the people who are the predators all of a sudden flip themselves into the victims and try to turn the people who notice into the predators. People try to do that a lot.
Amen. And there's no way you can fix a problem if you won't even admit what the problem is. It's the same thing we've had with this idea that we're not going to call jihadist terrorism anymore. If you can't even name what the problem is, how in the world are you going to fix it?
You know, the analogy between those two kinds of violence and those two kinds of reporting is exact. There's a lot of people ignoring it, a lot of people wishing it away, but it's not going away.
Well, Colin, we appreciate the book. We appreciate you just, telling the facts like it is, letting the chips fall where they may. If people read the book, you will see it's not a racist book. It's telling the facts. Colin, thanks for being with us today.
All the best out of Kansas City.
Same to you, sir. All the best.
Thanks.
Colin Flaherty, White Girl Bleed a Lot.
Okay, this next interview is weird. Oh, by the way, how did I do on the interview? Did I say anything that was wrong? Did I say anything that was didn't come true? I almost said in spades. Did I say anything that didn't come true 100%? Was I the canary in the coal mine? I think the answer is yes, and yes. Anyway, here's another story out of Kansas City. This is a video. The audio on this is a little, if you didn't know what the audio was, you might not understand. It's about 90 seconds of, I'm going to use about 90 seconds of audio. What it is, it's a bunch of black people walking down the street. You'll hear them say they're at the plaza. And when you hear a crunching sound or a loud spiking sound, what you're hearing is a bunch of black people taking running jumps and jumping on the hood of a car. Now, I don't think that's a casual repair. Anyway, they're walking down the street. They're doing that to every car. And at the end of the video, you will hear cops chasing the fellas and telling the one guy he's under arrest.
Dumbass shit niggas do at the plaza. Look at dumbass niggas. Dumbass shit niggas do at the plaza. Look at these dumbass little niggas, man. What the fuck? I got on kicks, dumbass niggas. What the fuck is wrong with dumbass niggas? These niggas is dumb as fuck.
Oh my god.
They dumb as fuck.
Oh, what the fuck?
Dumb nigga shit.
Out of there. Look, they better get out the car.
Dumb nigga shit.
They gonna shoot y'all. Oh, Kurt! No, wait! Oh my god!
Dumb nigga shit. Dumb nigga shit.
Hey, I'm gonna do it. No way.
Dumb nigga shit.
No, man, don't do it.
Look at these dumb ass niggas, man.
Oh, me. What? Come on, walk. Walk back. I already knew you were what y'all gonna do? Go do it, man. Can I get some? Go do it, man. Man, go do it.
Dumbass niggas.
Man, go do it. That's too high. Man, go do it, man. Yo, man, they calling the boys on y'all. Y'all stupid.
Dumbass niggas. Dumb niggas.
I got a boo-boo now, cuz.
Information of dumb niggas right here. This is dumb niggas.
Oh, my God. I'm trying to get some receipts. I mean, look, come on, let's do it.
Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas, man. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas, man. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas. Dumb niggas. Look at it. Look at it. Man.
Get on the ground.
Damn, dumbass niggas. Dumb niggas.
Hey, come here. You're under arrest, too. Get over here.
Me? Oh.
Yeah, here's another story over the last couple of years. Some of the teens, they had guns at the Country Club Plaza. Apparently, according to what we're about to hear, that's not a big deal.
Weekend on the Country Club Plaza after a teen opened fire, injuring 2 people near 47th and Broadway.
And right now, Kansas City police are still looking for the gunman. Today, we did uncover a lot more about the shooting, though, as people who witnessed it opened up to us.
41 Action News reporter Ariel Rothfield joins us live now from the plaza. And Ariel, what did you learn today?
Well, Mike, we learned about 3 scary situations which unfolded here in the plaza in the last 3 weeks. All involved guns and teenagers as young as 12 years old.
All of a sudden I heard just these, I thought they were like firecrackers, actually.
Matt Orr says he's never seen anything like this on the plaza.
It was insane. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that something was going on because people wouldn't be acting like that otherwise.
Standing feet away, he heard shots ring out Saturday night across the street. A woman and a 14-year-old boy hit in the leg after police believe a group of 13 teens got into a fight.
To me, this place was a really high-end place. It was, just a really fancy place to me, and for that thing to happen, it kind of changed my perspective of the whole plaza.
Brian James isn't alone. This woman,
there's no chance I would ever go back there after dark.
Who asked we not show her face, also says her perceptions have changed after Waterfire KC when she and her family saw police chasing a group of teens.
We saw one of the young men, he kind of fell almost, but he threw a gun underneath the car in front of this parked car in front of the sugar store. And the cops kept chasing him, and there was just more of them. There was more young men that came running.
Kansas City police tell 41 Action News they did recover a gun. Several teens were detained, questioned, but later released. A week later, police reports show officers on the plaza responded to yet another call involving a gun, making the total 3 incidents so far this month.
Teenagers don't really have a place to just kind of fool around. And so I think they go to places like the plaza and they go to places like Zona Rosa. And it's not a bad thing until one of them brings a gun and starts shooting people.
We did reach out to the plaza management in regards to Saturday's shooting. They tell us they are working closely with Kansas City Police Department. As for other security measures, they tell us they have a lot of things that are visible and not so visible, and they do hire armed off-duty Kansas City police officers. Live on the plaza, Ariel Rothfield, 41 Action News.
Hold parents accountable. That's part of Kansas City Police Chief Daryl Forte's plan to control unruly teens on the plaza.
Yeah, Forte's been tweeting his concerns and answering questions on Twitter since Sunday after nearly 200 teenagers converged on the plaza and literally stopped traffic. Lisa Benson is live with more on efforts to keep the plaza safe.
Well, Chief Forte is coming up with a plan right now to control bad behavior here on the plaza, and he is not alone. He hopes to put an end to the crowds of rowdy teens who blocked traffic and disturbed patrons on the plaza Saturday night. 3 teens were arrested and cited for several violations, including disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and hindering traffic. City council members recently approved the appointment of a youth committee. They're hopeful the 20-member group comprised of 15 teens will help them meet the needs of area teens who they believe need something to do on the weekends. Now, new at 5 o'clock, we'll have more on this youth commission, and we'll let you know when Chief Forte is going to outline his plaza plan for everyone else. Reporting live, Lisa Benson, 41 Action News.
So I love the white guy they interviewed in there. He's just the guy they picked up off the street. He goes, yeah, the kids don't have anything to do, so it's natural they would take out guns and start shooting each other. That makes a lot of sense to me, doesn't it? Doesn't that make sense to you? Our only alternatives are shooting people or not. That's it. What is it about race in this country that makes everybody, A, an instant expert, and B, instantly insane? Well, part of the answer is the psychiatrists tell us we're only as sick as our secrets. And everybody's so secretive about race. Everybody is really afraid to be plain spoken about it, about some real problems we have in this country with black dysfunction, black criminality, black violence, wildly out of proportion. And so when you finally get somebody to talk about it, you can hear like that guy you heard there. I mean, that to me is insane when you say stuff like that. Oh, yeah, I understand that. I understand somebody would bring a gun. Oh, yeah. Here's where it starts to get a little bit weird. A couple of years ago, they decided to put a curfew on the plaza and a couple other places, but they only enforce it at the plaza, and most of the people they arrest are black. Yes, this made some people very unhappy.
Reports now of teens causing trouble on the Country Club Plaza. We caught some of it, in fact, on camera late last night. Our Mitch Weber tells us patrons and merchants on the plaza noticed a moving mob of people.
Amy, one of the staff members took this video after work last night when we spoke with some who work and live around the plaza, and they believe KCPD needs to increase patrols to solve this problem.
Kansas City police once again on crowd control Saturday night involving teenagers. Police tell 41 Action News they took 4 teens into custody.
I heard the gunshots, but of course when I'm about like 2 or 3 blocks away, I don't know what direction it was coming from.
But this scene is one that instantly reminds Heather Wilmus of the past problems on the plaza once winter turns into a warm summer night. In 2011, Mayor Sly James found himself in the middle of the mob mayhem when gunfire erupted and the chaos injured 3 teens.
They were on top of it. If there was a group bigger than 5, 7, they would just immediately break them up as soon as they saw them. And they made it very clear to the public that they don't want large groups anymore.
Rachel works at Inn Valentino on the plaza.
That's why I was redoing the leggings this morning.
She's seen the police presence dwindle in the last few months.
We have tourists all the time, and if people don't feel safe, they're not going to come, which in the long run is just going to hurt us throughout this season.
Now, after the 2011 incident, the mayor established a curfew for teens. Now, it doesn't start, though, until Memorial Day weekend.
Metro parents are crying racial profiling in connection with the curfew in the Kansas City Entertainment District.
But it's not what you'd expect. Dina Blake says her girls were the first to receive curfew citations on the plaza this year, and she believes it's because they're white. Lisa Benson pulled the numbers. She's live on the plaza with what she's learned now. Lisa?
That's right. Dina Blake has learned that her daughter and her daughter's friends were the first white teens to receive curfew violations on the plaza this year, and it happened when they were leaving this movie theater. Last weekend, Dina Blake was upset after her daughter and her friend were taken into custody by police on the plaza as she circled the block waiting for them to get out of a movie. Now she's outraged.
As far as nighttime, nobody in my family will be on the plaza.
Blake suspected the girls were targeted by police because they were young white teens on the plaza. She believes the police department's report proves that.
100% of the citations were issued to black kids, and then I believe that when it came out that that was occurring, they were feeling pressure to find white kids and issue citations, and my daughter and her friend fell into that trap.
According to the report issued by the Kansas City Police Department, this year only 2 white teens have been cited for curfew violations in the city's entertainment districts. Those citations were issued last weekend to Blake's daughter and her friend.
The numbers are what they are. You know, there's a curfew, it's enforced across the board, so, you know, we don't really have much control over who is in violation.
Kansas City Council member Jan Markison represents the 4th District and says race is not a factor when it comes to curfews. Safety is their top priority. She encourages parents to accompany their children if they want to hang out on the plaza.
The parents need to understand how the curfew works, and it seems pretty straightforward.
Citywide, 43 teens have been cited for curfew violations since January. 33 were black, 10 were white. And of course, this is a story that we will continue to follow. In fact, Monsters University is playing tonight, and we talked to the city about whether or not they are planning on getting some signage up to let people know when the curfew hits. And that is something, of course, we'll continue to follow, and we are going.
The large group of teens had just seen a Disney movie when they say security and police took them into custody on the plaza. And at least one parent was right outside waiting to pick them up. New at 5, Lisa Benson spoke with the teens and their parents.
Well, the 2 15-year-olds had just left the movie when a security guard asked them their age, and a police officer escorted them off the property.
I'm officially a college student.
Monster University is a Disney movie about monsters becoming friends. Abby Blake and Natalie Hickey watched the movie at the Cinemark Theater on the Plaza Saturday night before being taken into custody.
She goes, "Do you know that you're in violation of the city ordinance?" And we're like, "No." And she goes, "You're breaking curfew." And like, I didn't even know there was a curfew. Well, I told the first guy that my mom was there. He didn't care.
Abby's mom was driving around waiting for the girls to get out of the movie when she got a phone call from Abby, who said they were being taken away by police.
And the whole time I have no idea who has them. Is it really police? Who has them?
The girls say Highland Property security guards and Kansas City police officers escorted them across the street and around the corner to the security office, where they were put in a holding area. That's where Dina shot this video as she waited for her daughter, who said she'd been searched for weapons.
It has given no indication that they have a reason to search her.
One by one, an officer would come out and give a citation to the parent and then let one kid go.
David Hickey is Natalie's father. He didn't know that the city had changed its curfew to 9 p.m., but has since researched the exceptions. More specifically, Section 50-237, which reads, when any person under 18 years of age is returning directly home from school activity, entertainment, recreational activities, or dance. David believes the girls didn't violate curfew.
The law wasn't enforced right. They were there waiting for their parents. To me, that qualifies as returning directly home.
Both parents received citations to appear in court on August 16th at 9 a.m. They could face a $500 fine for allowing their daughters to watch a 7:40 showing of Monster University. Now, I contacted Highland Properties, Cinemark, Security, and KCPD. I talked with someone at each agency. They all said they could not make anyone available for comment today. We'll be sure to follow up tomorrow. Lisa Benson, 41 Action News.
And so the people who were unhappy were the people who were saying, hey, you're only arresting black people for violating the curfew. What's up with that? That's what a councilman said, the guy we just heard from, Jermaine Reed. Over the next week or so, cops started hanging out around the movie theaters. Kids coming out of the movie theaters were arrested and put into custody for violating the curfew. That's how you arrest white kids. So a white kid coming out of a movie theater, a Disney movie, standing outside waiting for her parents to pick them up. The mom is circling the block. They get arrested and put in the slammer. And that's equal to a large group of black people attacking cops. They pull gun on cops at the plaza. Attacking shopgoers, restaurant eaters, cars that are stopped at stoplights, young lovers walking hand in hand through the plaza. They're equal. Good Lord, where do these fools come from? I mean, we could do these Kansas City stories all day long. but I just wanted to give you a big overview of how in a place like Kansas City, where I don't think, if you hadn't been there, maybe you wouldn't think this stuff was going on there. I wouldn't have thought that. But it's Kansas City, Missouri. There's some bad business going on in Missouri. Not just Kansas City, not just St. Louis. What about Springfield, Missouri? That's where Brad Pitt comes from. We've done a lot of stories in Springfield. A lot of stories involve college athletes going to these colleges in these small towns in the middle of nowhere. It's like when you go out to recruit a football team, which is exactly what happened to a big story I wrote about Springfield. You go to these places to recruit football players. Well, when you're in Springfield, Missouri, I think it's called University of Missouri Springfield or Missouri State Springfield, you're not really getting the A-level recruits. You're going down to the B, C, and D level, the recruits that might be good, but yes, they have a long criminal record. That's what happened in Springfield, Missouri. And there was a lot of argy-bargy in Springfield, Missouri. So if that's what's happening in Kansas City, Missouri, if that's what's happening in Springfield, Missouri, wow. What do you think's happening in the rest of the country? Let's finish it up with a quote from the former mayor of Kansas City. He was the mayor of Kansas City, then he became a congressman. He's kind of a big dog down there. His name is Emmanuel Cleaver. He's a big dog member of the Black Caucus in Congress. And there's lots of stuff named after him there. I don't know if it's named after him or maybe he had a famous father, but yeah, there's like a freeway named Emmanuel Cleaver Freeway. His cousin was a gentleman named Eldridge Cleaver. Anyway, Emmanuel went back to the district a year or so ago on an immigration issue. But they said, hey, maybe you'll know something about this curfew they're talking about. So they tracked him down and they said, what's up with this curfew? Let's see if you recognize his answer.
Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver brought to town one of the most vocal legislative leaders on immigration reform. But during an interview with Cleaver this afternoon, he became very vocal himself on another controversial topic: the expansion of the proposed citywide curfew. Our Garrett Hake joins us from the Town Hall meeting of immigration reform.
Hi, Amy. Yeah, I spoke with Congressman Cleaver just before the town hall started. We spoke a lot about immigration, but given his experience as a former mayor of this city, I wanted to ask him whether he thought the city was doing enough to fight crime in town and whether he thought the proposed expansion of that citywide curfew would help at all in that effort. Take a listen.
All we're going to do is make a lot of black kids angry.
Well, I guess I don't need my tagline on this particular podcast, do I? So, hey, listen, the podcast is doing well. Thanks. If you're listening to it right now, you're one of the hardcores. You listened to the end of it. Good for you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the support. The people who want to support us are supporting us on PayPal. You could find my PayPal account at myminds.com/Colin Flaherty page. Or if you remember this, it's paypal.me/Flaherty457. The only reason I can remember that is because it's Fahrenheit 457. Flaherty 457. PayPal.me/457. Flaherty 457. Anyway, so thanks for all your support. Thanks for your encouragement. Thanks for all the story ideas. Thanks for spreading these things around. You notice I normally don't go, hey, share, like, subscribe. Well, I don't do that because it's been my experience is once people hear these things, once people hear the podcast or once people see the videos, we can't stop them from sharing it. So I hope you liked it. I hope you continue to listen to it. I hope you do subscribe. Subscribing is the easy way to do it. You can subscribe at iTunes, or it's on iHeart, it's on Spotify, it's on all the big places where people get their podcasts. But one caveat, if you do subscribe to this podcast, subscribing to this podcast has been known to make a lot of black kids angry.